So the Springboks versus Ireland is only around 24 hours away, and it is the most anticipated game by far of this Rugby World Cup up to date, and I can understand why, seeing as it's number 1 versus number 2. These two teams going to be throwing absolutely everything at each other and should be a very entertaining fixture. And in this preview, we will be looking through at the lineups for these two sides, key players to watch out for, also looking at the games that they have had recently in their groups, followed by a prediction at the end of who we think will walk away with the victory. But starting with the Springboks, they announced their side relatively early in the week, but looking at their starting lineup, number 1, Stephen Kitsoff, number 2, Bongi Umbonambi, and number 3, Franz Malherbe. A very strong front row, and actually 3 changes from what they did have in their last game up against the Romanians. In the lock-in duo, it is Eben Etzebeth returning from injury at number 4, and number 5, Franco Mostert. So far, 5 changes compared to what they started in the game up against the Romanians. The Springboks, they've gone with a very different tactic to the Irish. A majority of their games they have split between 2 main lineups, whereas Ireland have been consistent with the same side roughly for each of their games. In the loose forward trio, it is number 6, the captain, Sia Kalisi, number 7, Peter Stephtatoy, and number 8, Jasper Wiese, a man who was going to be coming off the bench in the game up against Romania, but in the end, he didn't get that opportunity. The 9-10, Faf de Klerk and Mani Lebok, back to what they did have throughout most of the Rugby Championship. Out on the left wing, it is Cheslin Colby. In the midfield, they have gone with Damien de Lende and Jesse Creel. Then out on the right, Kurtley Aronsa, who I feel will be a very dangerous threat for this Irish defence. And then number 15, to close out the starting lineup, it is Damian Valimza. So that is the Springboks side. Now looking at the Irish, and I have to say I believe that this is one of the strongest sides that not just the Springboks, but also Ireland could have taken to the field for this game. Number 1, it is Andrew Porter. Number 2, Ronan Kelleher. And number 3, Tyke Furlong. So scrums are going to be so important for both of these sides throughout this match, as well as lineouts, just the set piece in general. And I believe they're going to be very hard to call in terms of which side will get that momentum early on. And the fixture in the lock-in duo will be Tyke Byrne at number 4, already scoring himself 3 tries throughout this Rugby World Cup. And then number 5, it is James Ryan. In the loose forward trio, number 6, Peter O'Mahony, a tank that seems to keep on getting broken wheels, but just keeps on rolling forward. That is Peter O'Mahony summed up to a T. The man, even if he's got his leg dangling, will just keep on running. And he's an absolute workhorse for the Irish, so I'm looking forward to seeing him go up against those physical South African forwards, because we know that with the Springboks bench that they've selected, going with the 7-1, they will be trying to empty the gas tank early with their forward pack, and then they've still got cover to come off the bench. Whereas for the Irish, going with the 5-3 means that they don't have as much cover, so perhaps have to play a little bit more of a balanced game, have those backs off the bench to have the real impact. In the later stages, number 7, it is Josh van den Vlaer, a man who's been a little bit quiet so far throughout this Rugby World Cup, but I'd like to think he's got a big game just around the corner. And then number 8, they have gone with Caelan Doris. Looking at the back line, Jameson Gibson-Park takes the starting lineup spot back from Conor Murray. Number 10, Johnny Sexton, a man who has scored 3 tries throughout this Rugby World Cup, just like Tyke Byrne, although he hasn't quite scored as many as the man at inside centre. Number 11, it is James Lowe. Number 12, they've gone Bundy Aki, 4 tries from 2 matches, currently scoring a double a game. Whether or not that trend continues in this game, though, may be a different story. Number 13, Gary Ringrose. Number 14, Mac Hansen. And number 15, close out the starting side for the Irish, they have gone with Hugo Keenan. So both sides looking extremely strong. For the Springboks, if we had to choose a couple key players, I would definitely say that Mani Lebok is going to be hugely important here, because his kicking has been criticised off the tee, but I believe what he does outside of the kicking tee with those try assists lately has actually been making up for those missed kicks. Now this game up against Ireland has the potential of being extremely close, so of course you will want to be as close to 100% accuracy as he can possibly be, but I think that his work in the back line is going to be absolutely crucial for the Springboks throughout this game. And I would argue that the man at number 15, Damian Valimza, is in that same boat, because if he is joining up well with Mani Lebok, similar to what they do for the Stormers throughout the URC, that will be where the Springboks can find a lot more attacking play. They've got dangerous men out on either wing, a strong midfield, They just need to get the ball out to them, and I feel like that distribution of Libbok and Willemse is going to be a very important factor. In the 4-pack, Jasper Wiese. I know that Dwayne Vermeulen played the full 80 minutes up against the Romanians. He is nowhere to be seen in this side. Jasper Wiese, he has had one big game in 2023 so far. That was the game up against Scotland. Other than that, though, he was a little bit out of form, so I'm sure he'll want to keep that form rolling after that Scottish win. And if he can do so, he's a big physical brute at the back of a scrum for the Springboks, as well as in those breakdowns. Could be absolutely crucial. And worst comes to worst, with that 7-1 split, they have got cover. Just in case for the Irish, in that back line, you have to go with Johnny Sexton. Because if he is shut down early by the Springboks, it's going to be a whole different ballpark than what we have seen in the game up against Tonga, as well as the game up against Romania. They will try and pressure him. The likes of a Peter Steph-Toy, he'll be rushing up, trying to stop Sexton from using that back line with Bandiaki at 12 and Damien Dealende at 12. This is going to be an absolutely awesome crash ball battle that does take place between those two, because they will both run the ball hard at the line. They'll both take the big shots. They'll get up, rinse and repeat, do it again, see whether or not a different result does take place. But Johnny Sexton, main key for Ireland in this game. In the 4-pack, I think Caelan Doris has been very strong lately, but I'm looking at Tyke Byrne, man at line-out time, up against Eben Etzebeth. If the Irish can retain a majority of their line-outs, they'll find that that set piece out their back line will be firing a lot better than it does if the Springboks are able to turn over a few of those line-out throws. But either way, every player out there on the field has to be on their A game for this matchup, because it could only be that fine margin that determines who walks away with the victory and who suffers the defeat. But looking at the previous games for these two sides, both have been able to score a lot of tries throughout their fixtures. As of late, the Irish in their first game up against Romania, they were able to win at 82 points to 8. Their second game was up against Tonga, and they were able to win at 59 points to 16. So in both of their games, getting themselves the winning bonus point for scoring 4 or more tries. You would have to say that they have had their 2 easiest games first, the Irish, but that won't be a bad thing for them, building a lot of confidence. The question mark is whether or not, if they aren't able to score early up against the Springboks, whether they have got that next tactic that will help them get over the try line. For the Springboks, they had their first game up against the Scottish. They were able to win at 18 points to 3, and then their game up against the Romanians, they kept them scoreless, 76 points to 0. So the Springboks are one of only 2 sides currently that have not conceded a try in this Rugby World Cup, the other being Argentina. But at the time that this video comes out, I believe it will be about half time in that Argentina-Samoa game, so perhaps that has changed, and it could be the Springboks as the only side that haven't conceded a try throughout this Rugby World Cup. And of course, during this game, after this game, they will want that trend to continue. It's just whether or not that attacking pressure that the Irish offer will be able to break through. But now we are up to that stage of a score prediction. Now this is a very tricky one, because I feel like no matter who I say is going to win, someone's going to be annoyed. I did actually say earlier on in the week that I wanted to see this match be a draw, and the reason behind that was because if this ends up as a draw and then these two sides end up facing in the Rugby World Cup final, imagine the atmosphere, imagine the story, the intensity that that would bring to that final. But I'm not saying it's a draw. Even though I'd like to see that, I'm going to say that the Springboks get themselves the victory, 17 points to 15, and what will be a hard-fought victory coming down to the wire, and perhaps that Mani Libbok kicking might be just enough to get the Boks over the line. But I do thank you all very much for tuning into this preview. We will be doing the live commentary on the channel, so be sure to check that out as well. But let me know in the comments down below who you think's going to be winning this match, and also who your key player is for both of these sides. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.